Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Leja, you can call me Lay, and as you can tell, the vibe is cozy, it is comforting, because I don't know, from the last video, as you could tell, I was really talking about my hobbies. That's something I really want to do more on this channel. So this video is all bookish type things. Like, obviously I have a lot more interest in different areas, from obviously like personal development, writing, podcasting, like anything that just is a form of communication I typically like, and sharing ideas I typically like. But something I want to work on this year is deeply being more opinionated and open about my opinions. So hence this video. If you hear background noise, that's just a New York thing. Today's vibe is just being like very comfy, cozy. We got the sweater, we got this vibe as a background. I hope it looks cute by time, because honestly the vibe today is just authentic. The vibe is hopefully very limited editing, because I was gonna do something else, but then I was like, why am I gonna try to do something else? I had a plan, I need to follow through with the plan, and here we are. I'm gonna talk about what I just finished, what I want to read for the month of January, and just like random bookish conversation. This is a very yapper type video, so if you're kind of not into that, I completely get it. If you're more into vlog styles, but this is not, at least not today. The book I just finished was Zodiac Academy: The Awakening, and it's kind of crazy to me because that book be my first book of 2025, because honestly I did not know if I was gonna finish it, because I had a hard time getting into it, even though it was like the first book I wanted to read on my Kindle, because I did say to myself like, oh, I'm gonna jump genres again. With each year I kind of hop to a different genre, because unpopular opinion, but reading one genre just doesn't do it for me. Because I started off, another unpopular opinion is I don't hate the books that we had to read in school. I know a lot of people say they were turned off from reading because of the books they had to read at school, but I actually liked some of them. So, but I didn't read a lot in high school. I mean, I read some things, like mainly personal development and poetry, like on my own time with like the schoolwork. I just felt like, because there was like so much going on, like regular high school drama, when that happened, I also had like other like interests. So at the time I was like really into home workout, and on top of that I was really into writing, like blogging, and honestly those things are still me today. And yeah, I just feel like I'm going through like a blank canvas era. So my love for reading kind of reformulated, because yes, I read books in college, of course, and not just like course books, but it was heavily personal development and like non-fiction books. So when was it? Was it 20? I think 2022 into 2023 is when I started like reading fiction books again. And of course my start was like the romance era, and it was mostly the Twisted series. So honestly that's kind of why she's like my favorite author, and I will always have like a special place like for that author and her books. But from there, I think, so 2023 I was still like in a very heavy romance type vibe throughout the year. 2024, that's when I kind of started getting more into like mystery thrillers type vibes, because I ended 2023 like that type of, because I was trying to transition into dark romance and I was just like, not for me, at least not yet. So I ended up reading more mystery-esque books, like even if they were like more YA, like young adults. So it was Inheritance Games, and then later on I eventually did start at the beginning, some point at the beginning of last year, A Good Girl's Guide to, yeah. So this year I'm kind of trying to move more into the fantasy type vibe, but I always said I wouldn't get into fantasy unless I got a Kindle. That's kind of what happened, because fantasy for me is, it's so, like, their books are thick. Like, whenever I see a fantasy book, they're like this big, like 800 pages. I can't do it. Like, for a physical book, and then I don't even know if I would really like the author, and then to have that take up space on my bookshelf. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna become a slight Kindle girly for books that are like very uncomfortable to read, because with my hand size, yeah, holding a thick book, because even some romances books, and I'm looking at Lauren Asher, because tell me why, like, the last books I read from her were like 500 to 600 pages. I have an interesting mix, like, with Lauren Asher. Like, she is an author that I will continue to buy like physical copies of, because I already started a collection with her and Anna Wong. Like, since I already have collections of their books, it makes sense to me to like keep collecting. But then when it comes to like, if I want to like hop around with genres, it makes sense to me to just read on the Kindle, because if I read it on the Kindle, it's like I'm testing it, seeing if I like it. And I know technically I could do that with a library, and I do have a library card. The only thing I hate about using books from the library is that it's like you only have 3 weeks for it, one, so I feel like more pressure to read. I guess sometimes you do need that push, but then on the other point is I do like to annotate and like scribble things in books, like especially more so on the self-help or poetry side, so like the nonfiction side. But even like sometimes in fiction books, I do like to like underline, like with a pencil, something like that. So that's one reason I can never sell my books. And two, that's the reason why like getting from the library, how disrespectful. Getting from the library is like a good option, but rude. It's a good option, but I feel like it's a time of year. So in the winter, I'm not gonna want to go out and like have to carry the book back and forth. Like, I just don't want to do it. In the summer and spring, I feel like, yeah, that's a cute vibe, but since it's like winter right now, I don't want to. I don't want to. So that is why Kindle right now. I think I will get books from the library, and I know there's an app called Libby that you can technically borrow books from too, because my friend told me about that. And like all the other like Kindle type hacks, since I literally just got it like for my birthday last year, even though I've been wanting it for a while. But anyways, so that was the first book I got on my Kindle, is Zodiac Academy, and it took me months to finish it, months on end, because I know when I started it. I started October 21st because my birthday is the 22nd, but it took me until January to actually finish that book, because I actually had a really hard time getting into it. Even though I love astrology, I like the elements, and it basically had everything I like, or that's why I thought I would like it. But then the bullying was, so I had a hard time. And this is where my bookish opinions come in, because I know that a lot of people do not like dual POV, but this is exactly why I need like everyone's perspective here, because I'm just confused right now. Like, I think I'm gonna continue it after I figure out what order I should read it in, because they had a prequel book. I didn't know about it before I read The Awakening, so now it's like, okay, whatever. So I don't know if I should just read the retelling of the first book from the guy's perspective, because there are some things I have a lot of questions about. Just a lot of questions about it, right? Because this is exactly why I like dual point of view and first person, because I need to know what people are thinking. I feel like in real life, it's obviously impossible to know what people are thinking, because I saw people say like they hate dual POV because it takes away the longing, the curiosity or something. And I get that, but I got enough of that in real life, so I need to know what everyone's thinking here. And on top of that, this is just that type of video. Anyways, girlies and guys, whoever. Going into it, I went into it like, I don't know. So there's a lot going on in it, I will say that, because there is astrology, there's orders, there's just a lot going on magic wise, and I'm here just like, I think I need to ease into fantasy here, even though that's more like, I guess it's a romantasy. So I guess that's why I thought like, okay, I read a romance book, so it would be a good gateway. And I know there are other like YA, more type YA books that people recommend. Even my friend is like a little more into fantasy. I personally, I would prefer fantasy that's away from like dystopian society, you know? So yeah, I wanted that. I kind of think I want to get into more fantasy books this year, kind of like lessen the romance books, because I'm just like not in that headspace, although I still have like romance books that I definitely am excited for, namely King of Envy, and then The Defender when it comes out, which will be I think in October. So her releases are April, October, and then we get Hendrik's book for Kennedy Ryan, and I love Kennedy Ryan's book. So I'm very excited for certain releases when it comes to romance, but this year I just feel like I'm not in my romance era anymore, because I think I was in it because I was trying to get more in touch with what I'm interested in romantically, like like those type of things, like what I look for in a person, because I know there's like discourse like, oh, why do some people only read romance books, and I don't just read romance books, that's the thing. But I feel like romance books is not just about like the plot. I think it's more, depending on how you like look at books and how you like interpret the consumption, I think it helps you like decide like, oh, I like this trait or this action a person did and how that relates to like the 5 love language or something like that, and then putting that in perspective, like, oh, like that would make me feel like that. Because even with certain books, like I cannot like or not like the entire person, but appreciate like certain actions they did, but would obviously not want their full humanness in real life, because they are definitely red flags. But anyways, so this is like just a random like brain dump of all the bookish stuff I could think of. But yeah, I have my iPad because I need to look at Notion. That's how I track like what I want to read in a year. And also I prefer to log those in instead of like using Goodreads and stuff like that. It's just not my thing. Because one thing I do hate about having, because I do like reading as a hobby, I like it as a hobby, because when you are multi-passionate and just creative in different ways, having like different outlets for your creativity, like that fuels your thoughts. And I will say romance makes me feel, mystery books makes me feel smart. I don't know, because I'm there guessing. I'm like, this person is suspicious, that's weird. Why are they acting like this? You know, like I like trying to figure out who done it. And a lot of times because I remember reading the first book of A Good Girl's Eye, and I was right about who did it. I knew it. I literally knew it. I mean, there were certain like plot twists I was not expecting, but yeah. So every time I got it right, I'm like, I knew it. There was something about their behavior. And I do think like when I read it, it's like kind of emulating like when I read like psychology, more like psychological approach books, stuff like that. And it's like deep diving and analyzing the character, because I think that's one of my favorite things to do regardless of drama, is like think about their upbringing, think about like how they express their emotions, like stuff like that. And I don't know, I just like dissecting characters. Like it's just so fun to me. So I also need to redo my reading log and everything. Why? Because I had books from like 2023 and 2024, so I feel like I just need a whole new fresh one for 2025. And I just haven't done that yet. So it's kind of in what I did for my planner for the year, because if you don't know, I do the 12-week year for my goals. That is just the structure I prefer, but I liked adding like a twist to it, and I actually made a public Notion template, so if someone wants to use it or anything like that, because I did post it on TikTok and people asked me about it, so I was like, you know what, yeah, sure, I will make a not exact version, but like with the keep the important parts there. And the reason why I wanted to, like, I had to kind of erase some of it because a lot of my things were related to like astrology, but I did say like you could put insights related to like your religion or anything that makes your goals like more on top of things, you know? Like for me, astrology, even though I'm like a mix of like spiritual, religious, whatever, and to me they're both important in different ways, and this video is not about that, so I'm gonna like pin that conversation. But I'm just saying because I like to break up my year a certain way, so I couldn't like put everything. But that's okay, that's okay. My books, my reading log for this year, and honestly they're based off of my long ongoing TBR, because I buy more books than I could read in a year, and that's another reason why I'm kind of like in this trying to have better habits, especially around spending and money and everything like that. But I also realized something from last year, because I indulged in my hobby so much that I felt like I wasn't giving enough attention to different areas of my life, but I still want this area of my life to be there. But I realized like, oh, I kind of have to figure out how to do like even slow reading. I think I didn't even read that fast last year. I think I ended up with 60 books last year, and for me that's good. And I know like a reading could replace certain other aspects like TV. Like that's why some people read for entertainment, some people read to learn. Like there are different reasons why people read. For me, it's more like it does give me perspective and things to think about that I would eventually want to write about, or use it as like a reflection point for myself for like my own personal development, you know? But anyways, so I'm trying to read 4 books a month. I'm already kind of behind schedule, if I'm being so for real right now. Books I want to read, and one of them I might change out, because one book I might change out is book number 3, which was The 48 Laws of Power. The reason, okay, controversial take, I do get curious about why people will say to read things or not read things. So that book was more like I bought it, and because out of curiosity I wanted to see what the fuss was about. I haven't read the book after years of having it, and I do want to read it but I also hear like interesting points about it, so that it's like dark and like, you know, but I was also very curious about it, so I do want to read it just to like kind of get it off my list, to be honest. And I hate when I buy books and then I don't read them, but I don't want to sell it either because I already spent the money on it. So it's like, you know what, I just want to follow through. Like, I just hate not reading things that I spent money on. So that's just the headspace I'm in. But the first book, the actual first book that I'm actually is my current read right now is Healing is the New High. That book is by Vex King. So I think I talked about this maybe or maybe not, but one of my favorite books that's like more in the self-development space, along with Year of Yes. What book do I like? Year of Yes is a big one. I also like The Defining Decade, stuff like that. But Good Vibes, Good Life was a very good one for me. I really enjoyed, maybe it was his writing style, but even I did a re-listen of it last year because I read it in 2023, like right before I got a new job. Then I read it, then I listened to it end of 2024. Like, I just feel like it's one of those books that I would probably read yearly because it just puts me back in a better headspace. So I want to read another book from him, which is Healing is the New High, because if you followed my channel for a while, last year I was kind of starting like talking about my healing journey, or as much as I could have, because like I said, I overthink about sharing my thoughts, opinions, and everything like that, which is why I'm trying to practice showing up and speaking my opinions and not overthink about expressing my thoughts, my beliefs, and everything. I don't know if it was like the shift in the nodes, like it went from the North Node in Aries to Pisces, which is my 9th house, and with the South Node shifting from Libra to Virgo. And when I'm gonna talk about this has nothing to do with books, so I'm just gonna like pinpoint, but basically that's what I've been like feeling. Like, one thing I've been doing is understanding what my triggers are and stuff like that, but also recognizing what I want to change over the next 18 months, and this is one of those things. And kind of showing up instead of having conditional confidence or whatever. That's kind of like what I'm thinking about writing about right now for Saturday, because last week I wrote about like letting go, and it just felt right to talk about letting go at that point. But this week it feels like a good idea to talk about like solitude and the difference between like solitude and then hiding, isolating that way. So like, there are productive ways to isolate, but there's a difference of wanting to embrace solitude versus hiding, and I think I knew which one I was actually doing, but that's a whole different talking point for that post. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in reading in that, check out my website. It is simplylay.com. And yeah, so anyways, back to healing. I really have no train of thought. Anyways, healing. So last year I did some videos about like healing, being on a healing journey, whatever, because especially at that point in time, I was really trying to figure out like my physical state. I always had issues with hormones and stuff like that, but basically I kind of ignored them. Like, they were like the least my like concern of problems because of the environment I was in. But then once I shifted into another environment, like going from my high school environment to my college environment, it was kind of like certain things I still did, but I did think differently. But certain things I still did, like my reaction to stress and like stuff like that, and I physically felt it a lot more. And then it just got progressively worse because I ignored it for so long. So I'm pretty sure, like I'm 98% sure the biggest cause is because how I operated like back then, like in my high school environment, and that kind of added to it. But because of how I deal with stress, I think I caused myself a hormone imbalance, and there are just things that constantly happen. My camera is about to die.